All right, we seem to have a little lull in the noise that the two Hobbit-type dogs were making earlier, and so I'm going to go ahead and try to begin. This will be in the Grip of ThermostatAnon number 8, I believe, and this is the original title of the video that YouTube's censorship detector regarded as problematic due to its politically satirical content and removed. The justification of this series is to analyze the images frame by frame in this story that is in some way, an allegory of our, or a science fiction, version of comic science fiction version of our contemporary political troubles. Those troubles being our government is overrun with conspiracy theorists and fascist alt-writers that don't really seem to believe in fair and legitimate elections, and many of us fear that this the outcome of January 6th that occurred in 2021 will occur once again in sometime in 2025, or I suppose perhaps even earlier, depending on how early the results of this election come in. If Trump and his Q-Maganons fail to win the election, which many of us are hoping, with much bated breath, and this is, by the way, November 5th, so this is our last chance really to get anything in under the 2024 election wire. Many of us fear that this will happen. A similar insurrection will happen once again, and there's not much that we can do about that other than point to and criticize all of the actions of all of the individuals involved in the first one, and with or without the help of ThermostatAnon, and so far ThermostatAnon has seemed to have chosen the side of the Maganonites or Maganites. I'm not sure exactly what the correct grammatical form of the followers of Q-Maganon are. You can hear Caspar Hauser's learning curve is back on his bone, but not as loud as before, so we may get through this. Today we're going to introduce some more universe crossing, I guess, but some of the precedent of the universe crossings today were already made within the Marvel universe, and I won't have to make them. I'll document that, and I'm ready to do so. The plot gets thicker and more interesting at this point, and does involve Mike Pence, and so let's proceed right on to it. I'll close this out, and we've already looked at this image. Now Caspar Hauser's learning curve seems to be arguing with the bones that he's chewing on. I'm not sure why he's growling at the bones, but doesn't seem very Hobbit of him. We've seen these images already. There's sour-faced Lindsey Graham. All right, this is where we want to stop. All right, so this is precisely where the plot starts to thicken, and I can't read the top of this, unfortunately, this slideshow, this Apple, this selection edits the images that one puts in slightly and cuts off the edges, and that's what happened to some of these titles. I have to keep that in mind when I make these images. Don't put important information too close to the edge. Something just days after Donald Trump receives the blessing of the virus. Oh, that's I think I cheated and I looked ahead, and it's not stage 7, it's stage 77. Stage 77 of the Q-MAGA madness, or MAGA madness, is when the fisheye appears. And I had said stage 7. I mean, because I guess stage 7 sounds more reasonable than stage 77. But there are apparently a lot of stages of the Q-MAGAnon virus. And at stage 77 of it, that's when the fisheye appears. All right, so that's kind of a spoiler for the future, but that information is also useful in understanding the meaning of the blessing of the virus and what the virus, represents. Here, it's that Q-MAGAnon virus that gives you the fisheye, the lizard brain, and creates a mental haze in which the reception of these various conspiracy theories is facilitated, because the center of the center of the rational process of the brain. What is that? The left brain, the analytic part of the brain that sorts and weighs information and is capable of discernment, and rational thinking. That kind of shuts down. That's part of the progress of this particular virus, and it's received as a blessing because it's worshipped in the form of Q-MAGAnon, in the way that Christians imagine that demons are worshipped, I suppose. So just days after Donald Trump receives the blessing of the virus, Mike Pence receives the blessing of the flies, and this is where the plot thickens and it becomes interesting. Greatest of all time, Lord Beelzebub, let them not cast aspersions upon the power of thy filth. And then the crowd is saying, swat him up, and it's a play on the lock her up, or and all that, which, I think we mentioned Michael Flynn in particular, one of the villains in this story, was particularly good at getting crowds to chant concerning Ms. Clinton, lock her up, and so this crowd is saying, swat him up. And he has the fly, and the fly actually did exist in our universe, and Pence does look like he's praying there, right? And then we have the thought bubble, and the fly. Like we did a piece because we did a piece recently where we haunted Donald Trump with his own language, because he continued to refer to Ms. Kamala Harris as a explicative vice president, and so we used this word that the fly is discussing here, and that flies are often associated with, particularly those flies that belong to the service of Lord Beelzebub. We'll talk more about Lord Beelzebub and the significance of choosing Lord Beelzebub later, but just keep talking, this word. I don't know. I clean up dog shit all day long because I have a lot of rescue dogs. So, like, is it really that bad a thing to say this word? I don't think. For me, this is just sort of like part of what I do, in the real, in our universe. And so I use the word, all the time. I guess there are other words that you could use, poop or feces or whatever it might be. But let's not pretend this is something that we can't talk about. So anyway, just keep talking shit. You're doing great. said, that's either that little fly on Mike Pence's head is either, Beelzebub, Lord Beelzebub itself in the form of a fly, or a messenger of Lord Beelzebub. Let's see, he's got a some kind of a button. It says make MAGA ThRNCOThWWr&D again. Okay, I think we talked about that again. Make the great beast again. Kind of a play on MAGA ThRNCOThWWr&D is the great beast in Greek, and is what's referenced in the book of Revelation, written by John of Patmos. If you're not familiar with that particular story, one of the early pieces that I did when I was a senior in high school involved a reading of, well, it was a performance, but part of it, involved a reading of the book of Revelation. So I've been familiar with, some of its material and its storyline, for quite some time. What else do I need to talk about? A lot is unsaid. As much as what's said in these thought and speech bubbles, there's still more, behind the story that, and some of it, may not be entirely clear and calls for interpretation. But what happens in this particular narrative at this point is that the Maganons fear that, and this is why. In our universe, this is why the Maganons, the Q-Maganons, wanted to hang, Mike Pence, because in a certain way, it wasn't Pence, himself that inspired all of this wrath, but his refusal to shut, how to put this. So Mike Pence was willing to perform, the office of the vice presidency on January 6th in relationship to his duties in sorting out the and ceremonially, really, because the act is almost completely ceremonial, but and it's hard to think right now because Kaspar Hauser's learning curve is chewing on that bone so loudly, and there's almost nothing that I can do to stop him from making so much noise. And if I take the bone away, he'll just find some way of making even more noise. So we're just going to have to deal with it, and my cognitive difficulty around that noise is going to have to work itself out. I'll just put up some kind of filter. Let me see if I can find. I put some stuff. I preset some sites on the internet. Okay, so like I was saying, in our universe, the Q-Maganons were fearful that Vice President Pence would perform his role, his ceremonial role in the electoral process, which is outlined right here. And in fact, he failed to refuse to do so, right? So he in that sense, he fulfilled the conditions of his office. On the first Tuesday after the second, this is the electors. Why are we in the electors? We need to be in the, okay, Congress. Here we are. All right. House and Senate staff meet with OFR staff to inspect the certificates of vote in late December. If any state's certificate fails to reach the President of the Senate calls on OFR to deliver duplicate originals in its possession to complete the set held by Congress. OFR office is the OFR. what is OFR? It's probably something really obvious and well, I don't see it here. Let's open up a new tab and do a new search for OFR. Or was it ORF? Let's go back and, no, it's OFR. Well, I don't think it can be Office of Financial Regulation. Office of the Federal Register? That seems our more likely chance. Office of the Federal Register. Let's look that up. Registrar. Office of the Federal Register is an office of the United States government and the National Archives of Records Administration. It also examines Electoral College and constitutional amendment ratification documents. Okay. So, it's the Office of the Federal Registrar. So let's go back, and then I don't have to be confused about what the OFR is. All right, so this is the section that we're concerned with, and the section, right, that and the description that that caused the Q-Maganons to believe that somehow eliminating Mike Pence would stop the certification and inauguration of Joe Biden and his vice President Kamala Harris, and that again, like I think we've talked about reification and how in particularly in the Marxist definition of reification, there's this idea that that ideas, right, become physical realities. The mind has a tendency to take historical concepts and to imagine that they were already part of the world from its outset and beginning. Like I think we talked about this in terms of race, how race and individuals who believe in race, like Tucker Carlson and this word white that keep coming up in their discourses, don't realize that these are historical ideas, historical constructs that didn't always exist, and that emerged under certain conditions, and that the conditions, the concept white and the concept slave and the concept of race, were always part and parcel to the same apparatus, and emerged in and we've done a whole thing on that and talked about the great chain of being, and how it led to these other ideas, and how part of it contaminated the idea of evolution, and with this notion of social evolution and social hierarchy and things like this. And we're not going to go over it all again, but you know, that's there in the background of what you know, our discussion of reification was, and in this instance, the reification seems to be, you know, this idea that if we can stop, you know, Mike Pence from performing his ceremonial role, then somehow magically, you know, Joe Biden will not become the president of the United States. Not understanding that the role itself is, you know, merely, you know, symbolic and ceremonial, and doesn't really create, you know, these sort of, you know, physical results in our, you know, in our physical universe. But in any case, House and Senate staff meet with Office of the Federal Register to inspect the certificates of vote in late December. This is the Congress. If any state's certificate fails to reach the president of the Senate, the president of the Senate calls on Office of the Federal Register to deliver duplicate originals in its possession to complete the set held by Congress. Congress meets in joint session in the House of Representatives on January 6th to count the electoral votes. The Vice President, as President of the Senate, is the presiding officer whose powers are limited, see, this is where the magic ends, by federal statute to performing ministerial duties. Like, he has no power. Like, he's not the priest that says, yes, you're married, or the ship's captain, or the whatever individual, you know, who's authorized to perform these, you know, performative speech acts and change the conditions of our social relations. It's ministerial, right? It's like those individuals in court, you know, who say court is now in session and things like that. You know, they don't have the power, like, to begin and stop the session. Lori's saying goodbye, so I'm gonna shut this off. I'm gonna say goodbye, and then I'll come back. All right, we're back. Let's start that sentence again. I think we're on this sentence. The Vice President, as President of the Senate, is the presiding officer whose powers are limited by federal statute to performing ministerial duties. And we discussed, like, we shouldn't, like, reify, like, the magic of the Vice President's ability to determine, you know, that at this particular moment, you know, the this elected official is now authorized to become the president of the United States, or whatever, you know, office that individual won, because the duties are ministerial, not authoritative, right? Okay, so or another way to put it, I guess, is they're ministerial rather than performative. The President of the Senate opens the votes to the states in alphabetical order, hands them to the appointed tellers who announce the results out loud. The President of the Senate then calls for any objections. To be recognized, an objection must, and of course none of these objections, well, I mean, here, this is the procedural, you know, these are the procedural limits on recognizing objections for the first part. One, be submitted in writing. 2, be signed by at least 1/5 of the House and 1/5 of the Senate. 3, and there were a lot of individuals, and these Q-Maganons, they are insane. Like, most of the Republicans at least that's what I remember, like, almost all of the Republicans in the House, like, did not believe in the results of and we have videos, you know, documenting their names, did not believed in these conspiracy theories and did not believe in the results of the election, or feigned disbelief. You know, that's another possibility. We've done a lot of work on feigning now, and feigning disbelief. I personally believe that a lot of the things that these individuals, you know, pretend to believe, they're feigned beliefs. They know that Biden won the Electoral College. They know that Biden won the vote, but they feign disbelief in order to accomplish these evil ends. It's somehow, like, it seems better to them than just to refuse the terms of our Constitution, right? That it's less evil to presume this ignorance and feign this ignorance than it is to outright say that they don't care what the results are, which seem to me is a more likely truth, right? More likely in terms of Occam's razor, the idea that the simplest solution is often the correct one, than the complications of all the rest. But that, I guess, is part of the Q-MAGAnon madness, so it's difficult to say. 3, state clearly and concisely, without argument, one or two acceptable grounds for objection, that A, the electors of the state are not lawfully certified under a certificate of ascertainment, or B, the vote of one or more electors has not been regularly given. If an objection is recognized, the House and Senate withdraw to their respective chambers to consider the merits of any objections following the process set out in 3 U.S. And then here's the U.S. Code 15 and 17. All the votes are recorded and counted. The President of the United States declares, oh, sorry, I said the United States. The President of the Senate, once again, we're talking about the Vice President. The President of the Senate declares which persons, if any, have been elected President and Vice President of the United States. Okay, so, and this was the rationale for hanging Mike Pence, right? So that somehow if we get rid of Mike Pence, then this ceremonial procedure in which he, his duties are strictly ministerial, will somehow, create the situation in which Donald Trump can remain the president until 25, or whatever their idea was, and so one of the solutions, in our universe, was simply to that the Q-MAGAnons, came up with, was simply to hang Mike Pence. But in this universe, which we're calling the meta-multi sci-fi comiverse, if I'm remembering correctly, that includes the Yodaverse, the Marvelverse, the George Lucasverse, the DC-verse. Let's see, there's a few other ones that I'm forgetting. Well, let's not worry about recounting all of them, but there are multiple universes, and in this universe in which this story narrative unfolds, we have reached the point in the plot where another alternative to get around this and the fear that on January 6th that Mike Pence will create the conditions for Joe Biden's presidency, and his swearing in on January 20th, is that the proper, is that the date? And was the creation of a Mike Pence doppelganger, and the doppelganger, the idea behind the doppelganger is that the doppelganger will refuse, right, to count the electoral college votes in that particular ceremony, and that because of the doppelganger's willingness to support, right, the wishes of the evil forces of Q-MAGAnon, that the events the events that are supposed to occur on January 6th involving this particular branch of the government, Congress, or will not be realized, and and hence, the presidency of Joe Biden will not go forward, and Donald Trump will remain in office. So, to create this evil doppelganger, this is where we are in our plot right now. To create this evil doppelganger, the Q-Maganons enlist the service of Lord Beelzebub, and there are a number of reasons why they choose Lord Beelzebub. We can talk about that. First, I want to talk about what may have inspired, to some extent, this plot twist, or this development in the plot, the creation of the doppelganger as a Mike Pence substitute. There is, in fact, a precedent in the Marvel universe for this. This is the Congress page. Let's go to that. Okay, so this character's name is Mephisto, and he's based on Mephistopheles. And for those of you familiar with the Faust myth, Mephistopheles is the tempter, right? The one who comes to Faust and tempts him. He's if you give me your soul. Sometimes he's tempted with other things, but if you give me your soul, I'll give you this great knowledge. And this character emerges in the Marvel comic universe in Silver Surfer number 3, and we may have to click on that, but we may be able to find enough about his role in there's the reference to the Faust legend. So the universe of German so the Marvel universe and the German folklore universe have already come together. That's not something that a contract in V through Theta is doing, on its own, on our own. But that happened already in Silver Surfer number 3, and oh yes, there's the reference to the Tempter. Author Mike Conroy has described Mephisto as the tempter who could offer the endlessly soul-tormented Silver Surfer the world, even dangling the surfer's off-limits long-distance lover in front of him. As always the case with Lee's heroes, the surfer's goodness and nobility won out, but Mephisto was only stymied, not defeated, and the pattern was set, right? So he would continue coming back and, tempting people with all these different things. So that happens here, and then let's see if there's anything else in here that we need to. I think we need to go into all that. Mephisto, la 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 la. All right, but we chose Beelzebub, and one of the reasons that we chose Beelzebub was merely coincidental, right? And that's explained by this image, because in our universe, this fly was really pestering Mike Pence in one of Mike Pence's speeches and presentations, and the media made quite a bit out of it. And the fly, of course, is associated with this particular demon or aspect of the demonic configuration called Beelzebub, who apparently has an older Philistine form, and was originally a Philistine god worshipped in Ekron. And it says here that in some Abrahamic religions he is described as a major demon, in some others he's described as a god. There's the whole Lord of the Flies thing, and the events of January 6th had a very kind of Lord of the Flies feel to it, and it seemed to fit. We could have chosen Mephistopheles or some version of Mephistopheles as he's presented in Marvel. Mephisto, I'm not sure if Marvel Comics has Beelzebub. I don't know of one, so If I had known of one, I would have gone there rather than Mephistopheles. But there are a few. Okay, so first there's the fly. That's one of the reasons that we chose this one. And but another one, and let's see if I can find it. Oh, I think it's in here. Yeah. All right. I'm going to read this part. Well, I don't know why, but my CD player opens itself. I'm not sure how that works, but it seems to open itself randomly, and maybe it's part of some virus that my computer has. I have no idea. I largely ignore a lot of this because if I didn't ignore most of it, I would never get anything done. In the Testament of Solomon, Beelzebub, Beelzebul, not Beelzebub, okay, but obviously these associations, the name changes over time and whatever it is, appears as prince of the demons and says that he was formerly a leading heavenly angel who was associated with the star Hesperus, the normal Greek name for the planet Venus, Aphrodite, as evening star. And that would be Lucifer, right? Because Lucifer is often associated with the planet Venus as evening star. But anyway, seemingly Beelzebub here, yeah, there we go. If I would have waited, I would have got that information in the next sentence before proceeding on. Right? Seemingly, Beelzebub here is synonymous with Lucifer. Beelzebub claims to cause destruction through tyrants. Okay, so that fact right there, causing destruction through tyrants, was a big part of the choice in selecting this particular demon for the Q-Maganons. Their goal, right, is to situate a tyrant in the office of president and to destroy democracy. So since the goal is to destroy democracy, it seemed a good choice to choose Beelzebub or some aspect of Beelzebub and the evolution of Beelzebub into Beelzebub, Lord of the Flies. And then that's the first part, the tyrants, and then the second, rationale for the choice of this particular demon in creating the doppelganger for Mike Pence comes from this passage of Matthew. What is this translation? Is this the King James translation? I think it is, but doesn't seem to say here. Jesus knew their thoughts and said to them, every kingdom divided against itself will be ruined, and every city or household divided against itself will not stand. And then, of course, this passage was quoted by Abraham Lincoln, right, in one of his famous addresses, right, regarding the Civil War. And because the Q-Maganons, seem to want to, create the environment and for another civil war, and because certain politicians in the Senate and Congress, in the Senate and the House and the federal government, as well as the Supreme Court, because I think we can refer to all of the members of the Supreme Court now as politicians rather than as judges, but as well as many members of the Supreme Court seem to want to drive us into another civil war. This aspect of Beelzebub seemed cause for a selection of this particular demon in the fabrication of the Pence doppelganger. Every kingdom divided against itself will be ruined, and every city or household divided against itself will not stand. If Satan drives out Satan, he is divided against himself. How then can his kingdom stand? And if I drive out demons by Beelzebul, by whom do your people drive them out? So then they will be your judges. But if I drive out demons by the Spirit of God, then the kingdom of God has come to you. So hence the choice, right, of Beelzebub here, because it relates to this passage, and this passage seems to be relevant to the events of January 6th and this whole idea of a house divided against itself, and that will not stand, and the other one too, destruction through tyrants, and since tyranny is in many ways diametrically opposed to democracy, these individuals who want to destroy democracy in the 21st century and inspire the Guardians of the Galaxy to step in and look for a hero who can assist in the preservation of democracy in the 21st century, but in order, to maintain democracy into the 31st century. So this is the rationale for the selection of Beelzebub, that and the accident of this fly landing landing and refusing to leave. Mike Pence said, maybe in our universe the real cause, well, I don't say real, like what's real, but one of the causes, in our universe might have been, hairspray. His hair is always a little too tidy, to believe that it does that work on its own. I suspect that there's a lot of hairspray involved in the performance of the performance of the duties of Mike Pence's hair, and it's possible that some ordinary fly, not under the direction and in the service of Beelzebub, or not possessed, by the demon, Beelzebub. I think we've been calling Beelzebub. I think it's the same spelling, isn't it? Let's see. No, there's the B is a U here, and so anyway, the form of the name, this is the wiki article on Beelzebub, so I really do believe that there are just different names that this this particular entity passes through in the same way that the entity that we refer to as J.D. Vance, has passed through various names in his lifetime. So it's not exactly the same spelling, but it's the same entity, and the rationale of the Q-Maganons, is based on all of that information. Just keep talking, chat. You're doing great. And this is the doppelganger, and the doppelganger, as you can see, is virtually identical to the actual Mike Pence. Now, if we go to the next slide, all right. Now, this is Groot, and what is this? What is this raccoon that Thor calls a rabbit? His name in the Guardians of the Galaxy, I can't remember. Let's find out. I'm sorry, I don't really follow. I followed, I read Marvel comics when I was a kid, and I've seen some of the franchise stuff, but I don't really follow it these days, being an adult. But I do find it fun to list the characters in our storytelling universe. Oops. see if we can. Rocket, that's his name. Genetically engineered raccoon-based bounty hunter, mercenary, and master of weapons and battle tactics. Rocket. So let's try to remember, and Rocket's played by Bradley Cooper. But let's try to remember Rocket, and something else is going on here. Okay, so first, we're speaking in Groot, and hence all of the language is I am Groot. But we have a Groot translator down here, and you can see, I hope you can see, the Groot translator has audio original Groot, and then the subtitles are in English. So they're speaking the Groot, but the subtitles are in English, and the English subtitles say, how is he supposed to be part of our franchise when he's not allowed to be in any scenes alone with Gamora anyways? And we'll explain that. And then Groot responds, I guess those parts were going to be played by Donald Trump in drag, and he's being sardonic, I guess, because recognizing Donald Trump's rather severe trans and homophobia, perhaps pointing to his need to pretend that he's one of these testosterone-laden alpha males and support the drinking of alpha hetero salamander juice. So I think that's where Groot was going. What Rocket is identifying in this statement, I am Groot, which if we need the translation, is right here. How is he supposed to be part of our franchise when he's not allowed to be in any scenes alone with Gamora anyway? Wouldn't that be difficult, to make a movie with Mike Pence as part of our group, since he can't be alone in a scene with Gamora? And that refers to this aspect of not the doppelganger of Mike Pence. So we can't really confuse the character, the doppelganger created by Beelzebub with the Mike Pence that performs in our universe, before the creation of the doppelganger. Let's do a search on that. Mike Pence. Let's see if I just put Mike Pence, Billy Graham. I can't spell Graham, but Mike Pence, Billy Graham. Search instead for Mike Pence. Okay. Billy Graham rule. Okay, so apparently Mike Pence follows the Billy Graham rule, and this was this has nothing to do with Christianity. This has the Modesto Manifesto. That's really funny. Or Billy Graham rule. It's a code of conduct among male evangelical Protestant leaders. So this is because you're you're traveling around proselytizing the way that the Mormons do, and there's this danger that you might run into women and either be accused of sexual harassment or assault, or perform the sexual harassment of assault. Now, why evangelicals are so afraid that they can't control themselves and are capable of sexual harassment and assault? I'm not entirely sure, but this does seem to be part of the project. And also, it not only is it not part of Christianity, but it's really counter to the way that Christ conducted himself in the world. For example, he speaks to the woman at the well. Well, at that time, although that doesn't really seem like a very feminist action in our zeitgeist, talking to someone who happens to be a woman, at the well, and preaching to that individual. In Christ's time, it was strictly forbidden, because of rules of separation of the sexes and all of this, and women didn't enter the tabernacle or whatever other form of worship site and construction was available beyond the tabernacle. Their duties were limited, and their ability to receive these the benefits of a certain kind of teaching practice related to religion were extraordinarily limited as well. So so this rule, right, the Modesto Manifesto, or Billy Graham rule, a code of conduct among male evangelical Protestant leaders in which they avoid spending time alone with women with whom they are not married, right? So Mike Pence is married, and he can spend as much time alone with his wife as he wants to, but he's adopted this code where he avoids spending time alone with women. And of course, one of the problems that arises in choosing to adopt this code, but also choosing to become a politician, is that your conversations and your critical conversations and your ability to perform your duties will be limited by the sexism of your this particular form of your devotion, right? It is adopted as a display of integrity, a means of avoiding sexual temptation, to avoid any appearance of doing something considered morally objectionable, as well as for avoiding accusations of sexual harassment or assault. And then here it says, here's the word Mike Pence. In 2017, it began to be also called the Mike Pence Rule, after the U.S. Vice President, a practicing Christian who also supported the idea. Now, it gives an explanation of why Graham in Modesto, California, in his evangelical meetings established this rule, but it largely is because that these individuals who travel around like traveling salesmen and had the potential to get in trouble. And he, right, Graham, didn't want any of these traveling evangelical salesmen, right, to tarnish the image of the Billy Graham empire. I mean, that's really the truth. And let's see, but it can be deployed in all kinds of interesting patriarchal ways, to interfere with women's participation in events that are authorized by this particular Modesto Manifesto or rule or procedural exclusion, right? By Graham's own admission, though, he was not an absolutist in the application of that rule that now bears his name. His autobiography relates a lunch meeting with Hillary Clinton that he initially refused on the grounds that he does not eat alone with women other than his wife. Well, that's an easy way to exclude Hillary Clinton, but I would get to have a meeting with Donald Trump, right? So it's just another. It turns out that this works very much in favor of patriarchal sexism and misogyny, and it wraps itself up as a robe of integrity and presents itself as a little halo of integrity, and when in fact it's just another means of excluding women and practicing patriarchal misogyny, right? Like so many other things. In March 2017, the Washington Post noted that U.S. Vice President Mike Pence, a practicing evangelical, never eats alone with a woman other than his wife, Karen, and that he will not attend events featuring alcohol without her by his side. Again, question mark. Emma Green, writing for The Atlantic, noted that the controversy was an example of how Notions of gender divide American culture, right? Certainly. While socially liberal or non-religious people may see Pence's practice as misogynist or bizarre, which certainly I do, for a lot of conservative religious people who are misogynist and bizarre, the setup probably sounds normal or even wise. Yes, because they're misogynist and bizarre. That's why it sounds wise. And they don't know the terms of their own gospel. Because if they knew the terms of their own gospel and had read the gospel of the New Testament, they would know that that there is nowhere in in the life of Jesus, whatever you believe about Jesus. I mean, I think whether you believe he was, a historical figure, a holy man, the Son of God, or anything else, whatever you believe, there is no evidence in the gospel that this practice or something like it, would have been condoned by the man, whom they pretend to follow, because as I stated, he challenged those gender assumptions and broke down the divide that existed in his time. And there was obviously a historical context out of which every story emerges. But within that historical context, he was actually quite a progressive regarding the breakdown, right, of the separation of the spheres, the separation of the gender spheres. So anyway, that's the explanation behind this particular slide. I mean, I guess, okay, so, I mean, if we wanted to argue with Rocket when he says, I am Groot, and maybe Groot, instead of saying I am Groot, could have said I am Groot, and then with the new I am Groot, not this I am Groot, but with I am Groot, the translator could have translated maybe we'll have to hire Karen to portray maybe we'll have to fire let's see, do we still have the Guardians of the Galaxy? What is it, Zoe Saldana? Doesn't she play the... Yeah, it's Zoe Saldana. Maybe we'll have to... I am Groot, could be translated... I guess, we'll have to fire Zoe Saldana and replace her with Karen Pence, right? And would anyone want that, though? I mean, don't you think, reasonably, isn't Zoe Saldana a better choice to play the part of Gamora than Karen Pence? Let's see if there's any information on Karen Pence playing Karen Pence as, is it Gamora? I'm calling her Gamora. Is it Gamora? Let me go back before I plug that in. Guardians of the Galaxy. Gamora. No, it's Gamora. But would Mike Pence allow Karen Pence to play the part of Gamora? Karen, no, not just Karen. Karen Pence. Karen Pence as Gamora. I want to see if there's any information on what that would look like. I don't see any. Karen Pence. So apparently she doesn't have any offers for playing that role. Karen Pence painted green. Isn't she green? She's not blue, is she? She's green. Gamora, that is. Karen Pence painted green. I don't see any information about the paintings of Karen Pence. Let's see what we can learn about
former First Lady Karen Pence and her potential for playing Gamora via her paintings. I don't know what this is. I'm not even seeing any paintings. Let's do an image search. Okay, so here's a painting. Well, it has green in it. It has a lot of green in it, but it's not convincing me that she would be a good Gamora. Well, apparently this is a video. I wasn't really interested in a video. I wanted to see the painting. It's funny, this is my image gallery, but it's taking me to videos. Here's a very green one. She likes the color green. Is this even Karen Pence's site? Pence Gallery. I don't think this is her gallery. All right, well, we're not getting very far here. Let's just look up, let's go back to where we were in Guardians of the Galaxy and get more information about the character and see if it sounds like Karen Pence would be a good fit. Gamora is a fictional character portrayed primarily by Zoe Saldana in Marvel Cinematic Universe media franchise. Based on the Marvel Comics character of the same name, Gamora is depicted as a member of the Guardians of the Galaxy, etc., etc., having escaped her previous life as an assassin after she was forcibly adopted by Thanos. Let's see if Karen Pence... I'll just, I don't have all of the apps that people do for these kind of things, but Karen Pence ever an intergalactic So I'm just going to add, was Karen Pence ever an intergalactic assassin? All. No, it just took me back to Karen Pence painted green. Okay, so let me try it again. Was Karen Pence ever an intergalactic assassin? Missing intergalactic assassin. Missing intergalactic assassin. Let's see. Prayer warrior. She was a prayer warrior. Well, let's see. Oh, this is Washington Post. It's not letting me in. I think a prayer warrior is different from. I think a prayer warrior is different from an intergalactic assassin as far as I know, but maybe in some universe it's similar. Karen and Mike Pence's astonishing moral hypocrisy. But moral hypocrisy is not a superpower. So Karen Pence, the wife of America's Vice President Mike Pence, will be teaching at a Christian school in Virginia that bans LGBTQ children and requires employees to declare their religious beliefs. Well, that's not really very constitutional, is it? Yeah, I can really see why the Guardians of the Galaxy rejected both Mike Pence and Karen Pence, if she wanted to replace Zoe Saldana in the role of Gamora, like a real-life setting for The Handmaid's Tale. The Emmanuel Christian School insists applicants initial a pledge to live a personal life of moral purity. This is what else the pledge says. I understand that the term marriage has only one meaning: the uniting of one man and woman in a single, exclusive covenant union as delineated in Scripture. It asserts that God intended sex acts only between a man and a woman who are married to each other. It identifies moral misconduct that would disqualify employees as premarital sex, cohabitation, extramarital sex, homosexual or lesbian sexual activity, polygamy, transgender identity, or any violation of the unique roles of male and female. So, if you're doing anything sexual outside of, and they don't specify whether they're, what sexual positions are allowed for a man and for a husband and a wife, right? Because anything outside of sex, presumably, masturbation falls under the conditions of sodomy. So pretty much anything else, even though it's unspecified here, I guess it's don't ask, don't tell. This is the Modesto Manifesto. In the Modesto Manifesto, masturbation is the term under which don't ask and don't tell occurs. Otherwise, anything else is punishable by exclusion and presumably firing. And since you already initialed the little box to get the job in the first place, I don't know if you have much recourse in taking it to court. It sure sounds like it's something that falls outside of what should be constitutional. Why does this school even exist in our country? Difficult to say. Yeah, I can really see why this guy was rejected, since his values are not constitutional and democratic to begin with, right? So I don't know. The Guardians may have. It seems to me the Guardians, made the right decision. Although it was generous of them, I think, to consider the possibility of selecting the Mike Pence that was not the Beelzebubian doppelganger as a potential choice. Generous, to have the interview in the first place, but I can see why he didn't get the job. I really can. that's the offensive image once again that we were censored for. All right, we're gonna close out there, and we'll come back to this post-election.